It is kind of a modern irony, right? Like, we all know Amazon's algorithms can basically predict what you want to buy before you even realize you need it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You search for a coffee maker literally once, and suddenly your entire digital footprint is just flooded with the exact filters and mugs you were daydreaming about.
It's scary accurate.
It really is. It's this system of just flawless, absolute visibility, like a machine that maps human desire with frightening precision. But today, for this deep dive, we are turning away from those glowing screens.
Right.
We're looking at something moving in the dark of their warehouses that those world-class tracking systems are entirely blind to. Welcome to Sector 4.
Yeah, we're stepping way out of the highly predictable world of consumer algorithms today. And we're going straight into this decentralized stack of, well, proprietary incident logs, spatial telemetry data, and hardware maintenance tickets.
Stuff you normally never get to see.
Exactly. And the data we are looking at today outlines a deeply anomalous situation that internal teams are, frankly, struggling to contain.
So, to lay it all out, our mission for this deep dive is to analyze a bizarre, rapidly escalating phenomenon that is known across worker forums as the Amazon glitch.
The Amazon glitch.
And we have a massive stack of sources for this. We're talking internal compliance reports, raw data dumps from US fulfillment centers, and this uncoordinated wave of employee accounts that are just flooding out of union message boards and TikTok.
Right, it's coming from everywhere.
It is. And we are trying to figure out what happens when the most advanced logistical network in human history collides with something it just cannot categorize.
Well, to ground this, let's look at the physical environment of these fulfillment centers. I mean, picture a windowless building the size of 14 football fields.
Wow, just massive.
Massive. It is bathed in that industrial sodium light, filled with towering rows of metal inventory racks, and defined by the constant deafening hum of automated conveyor belts.
Yeah, I can picture that. Just loud and huge.
Right. These are highly controlled, restricted spaces. And the events we are tracking in these documents are occurring exclusively in the deep interior of these facilities, specifically right around 3:00 a.m.
And the specific testimonies in these employee forums, they aren't just vague complaints about, feeling creeped out.
No, they're all highly specific.
Yeah, I am looking at a report from a forklift operator in the San Joaquin Valley. He describes working an overnight shift in Sector 4, which is the heaviest automated zone, and watching a tall, indistinct figure dart behind a pallet of electronics.
And he thought it was a person, right?
Exactly. He assumed it was a coworker committing a severe safety violation by walking into an active robotic grid. So he stopped his machine, walked down the aisle to confront them, and found absolutely empty space.
And what's fascinating here is the sheer scale and consistency of that exact anomaly.
Yeah, it's not just one guy.
Not at all. This isn't an isolated incident. We're looking at hundreds of perfectly matching reports from workers stationed thousands of miles apart.
That is wild.
Facilities in Ohio, Florida, California, and Texas. Different regional managers, completely different crews, all logging the exact same visual disturbance. These tall, light-absorbing anomalies they're calling shadow figures.
Okay, but if this were just human eyewitness testimony, we could probably chalk it up to the graveyard shift blues, right?
Right, just tired workers.
Yeah, a combination of fatigue, poor lighting, and way too much caffeine. I mean, human eyes are incredibly easy to trick.
Oh, totally.
But the reason this deep dive exists is because of the hardware logs. So, let's look at the automated drive units, those low-profile orange robots that slide under the massive shelving units to carry inventory across the floor.
Yes, the drive units. And the routing algorithms controlling those units are a marvel of modern engineering.
Right.
The central server maps the entire warehouse floor into a massive coordinate grid. It knows the exact position, speed, and trajectory of every single robot in the building.
It's like a perfectly choreographed hive mind system.
Exactly. When a robot is assigned to fetch a shelf, the central system plots a flawlessly efficient, mathematically perfect path. It ensures none of the units ever collide. They move in straight lines and sharp 90-degree turns based on this master blueprint.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the telemetry data in these leaked hardware logs shows the robots completely breaking that master blueprint.
Yeah, just ignore it.
Yeah. The system logs are flooded with evasive maneuver error codes. These orange units are actively navigating around completely empty spaces on the warehouse floor.
Right, which makes no sense.
It makes zero sense. They're humming along their assigned grid path and then suddenly slamming on their brakes, altering their trajectory, and taking a wide, inefficient arc around a specific patch of concrete.
Just swerving for no reason.
Swerving as if a massive physical obstacle is blocking their path.
And the mechanics of that evasion are what really make this unexplainable. Because when an automated unit encounters an unexpected obstacle, it doesn't just instantly swerve.
Oh, really? It checks in first?
Yes, it pings the central HiveMind server in milliseconds to ask, is there another robot in my path?
Okay.
And in every single one of these anomalous incidents, the central server checks the floor grid and replies, no, your path is totally clear.
Wow.
But the robot's local sensors override the network command anyway. The machine refuses to move forward because it physically registers a solid mass in front of it.
And when floor managers pull up the live security camera feeds, pointing at that exact grid coordinate to see what the robot is dodging.
Nothing.
Exactly. The camera shows empty space. The floor is completely clear.
Which is chilling.
Very. I mean, I initially assumed we were just looking at a bad software update across Amazon's network. You know, like how a self-driving car might slam on its brakes because a plastic bag blew across the street and confused a basic optical camera.
Right. Cheap collision sensors getting confused by dust or bad lighting. It's a reasonable assumption.
Right, that's what I thought.
But the technical specifications in these maintenance logs completely rule out simple optical confusion.
How so?
Well, these machines do not rely on basic optical cameras to navigate. They are equipped with industrial-grade spatial telemetry arrays.
Okay, so a lot more advanced than a camera.
Much more. We are talking about military-grade sensors, advanced LiDAR, and ultrasonic sensors.
Hey, LiDAR, like the laser mapping?
Exactly. LiDAR works by pulsing invisible lasers outward and measuring the exact time it takes for that light to bounce back. It maps physical geometry. It measures distance and mass.
So, for a laser to bounce back and trigger a collision override, it has to hit a physical wall. Like, it has to hit actual matter.
Exactly that. The lasers are striking a geometric object solid enough to force an emergency stop.
I mean, that is crazy.
It is. And the analysts in these internal documents propose a hypothesis that completely reorients how we view this phenomenon.
Which is?
Well, what if the robots are functioning flawlessly? They are detecting an entity that is genuinely physically present on the warehouse floor, but it exists in a state or vibrates at a frequency that standard optical camera lenses and the human eye simply cannot process.
Think about your home Wi-Fi network, right?
Yeah, good example.
You can't see the radio waves flooding your living room right now. Your eyes are biologically incapable of seeing that part of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Right, we just don't have the hardware for it.
But your phone sees it perfectly. It interacts with it. So what these logs suggest is that the visible light spectrum is missing this entity entirely. But the LiDAR lasers, operating outside that narrow visible band, are slamming right into it.
Yeah, it shifts the anomaly from a psychological hallucination to a physical presence displacing space.
Exactly.
And if an entity has enough physical mass to interrupt a laser array and force a 100-pound robot to swerve, it must be displacing air.
And displacing air inside a massive enclosed acoustic space creates sound waves.
It has to.
Which brings us to the internal acoustic logs. And honestly, this is the most bizarre piece of evidence in this entire stack of sources.
Yes, the audio clip.
The phenomenon known among the floor workers as the laughter.
And we need to point out that this audio anomaly isn't just a rumor. It's officially documented in the predictive maintenance logs.
Let's explain why the warehouse is even recording audio in the first place, because that confused me at first.
It's an important detail.
Yeah, so Amazon installs highly sensitive ambient microphones all along those miles of conveyor belts. But they aren't there to listen to the workers.
No, they are connected to an AI predictive maintenance system.
Right. The microphones constantly listen to the high-pitched acoustic whine of the metal bearings inside the conveyor rollers. The AI analyzes that audio to predict when a specific bearing is going to wear out and snap. That way they can replace it before the belt actually breaks.
It's brilliant, really. But if we connect this to the bigger picture of the anomaly, those specialized maintenance microphones are what captured the event.
Oh, man.
Yeah. At 3:14 a.m. in a facility in Ohio, and subsequently in several other locations, the AI system flagged an auditory severe anomaly.
And it wasn't the sound of grinding metal.
No. The system recorded high-fidelity acoustic waves echoing through the massive canyons of the conveyor belts that sounded distinctly like a young child playing and laughing.
I am looking at the architectural blueprints for these fulfillment centers, and the logistics of a child being in Sector 4 are fundamentally impossible.
Completely impossible. Let me explain why it matters so much.
That too.
The perimeter security is frequently compared to a military installation. You have heavy exterior fencing, badge-restricted access turnstiles, and constant security patrols.
So you do not just wander into the deep interior of an Amazon warehouse.
Exactly. To even get onto the floor, you pass through metal detectors. The interior is continuously monitored by overlapping fields of view from hundreds of surveillance cameras. There are zero blind spots.
Right.
And access to the automated zones is strictly limited to trained adults wearing specialized algorithmic vests. These vests force the robots to stop if a human steps onto the grid. So a child being there, it just doesn't happen.
Okay, let me push back on this, though, because we have to exhaust every earthly explanation. Let's say a human child didn't physically sneak in. What if a disgruntled employee on the outside managed to hack into the warehouse's internal PA system? You know, play a creepy audio file just to mess with the night shift.
The internal investigators explored that exact vector. The network logs show zero unauthorized access to the public address system. But more importantly, the audio didn't come from the overhead speakers.
Wait, really?
Yeah, the maintenance microphones captured the sound organically propagating through the physical space of the warehouse. It was acoustic sound generated at floor level, reverberating off the metal racks.
Okay, so we have an invisible physical mass heavy enough to trigger LiDAR, generating the acoustic sound waves of a child, while adult workers simultaneously report seeing dark, light-absorbing figures darting through the aisles.
It's a lot to process.
It is. You can actually see the desperation in the internal investigation documents to find a rational explanation. I mean, they needed to put a lid on this before it caused a massive work stoppage.
Yes, they were panicking.
So they turned to neuro-environmental engineering.
Right. They compiled a heavily researched internal white paper focusing on the specific environmental data of the warehouses themselves.
Which is fascinating.
It is. Consider the raw electrical load required to run a fulfillment center. You have thousands of miles of heavy-duty wiring, massive industrial motors driving the conveyor belts, enormous server farm enclosures processing the routing algorithms, and thousands of high-voltage charging stations for the robotic fleet.
It is essentially a multi-megawatt electrical grid trapped inside a sealed metal and concrete box.
And all of that localized electricity generates incredibly intense, concentrated electromagnetic fields, or EMF.
EMF, right.
The neuroscientists cited in the internal review suggest that this unique EMF environment creates a documented physiological phenomenon known as a fear cage.
A fear cage? That sounds intense.
It is. When the human brain, specifically the temporal lobe, is exposed to unusually high levels of fluctuating electromagnetic fields for prolonged periods, the sensory processing centers begin to misfire.
It just scrambles your hardware.
Exactly. The extreme EMF induces profound feelings of paranoia, a sudden drop in ambient temperature perception, and the intense feeling of being watched.
Oh, wow.
And most crucially, it can trick the human visual cortex into hallucinating dark, fleeting shapes in the peripheral vision. In neuro-environmental studies, these are referred to as voltos, or shadow people.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this fear cage white paper, and on the surface, it looks like a brilliant, clean scientific answer. It perfectly explains the human element.
It does.
Right. A forklift operator is working a 12-hour shift at 3:00 a.m. He is standing next to a massive industrial motor, getting absolutely blasted by localized EMF radiation. His temporal lobe misfires, and he hallucinates a shadow figure darting behind a pallet. The biology makes total sense. But the internal investigators missed a massive, glaring logical gap.
The hardware data.
Yes, the hardware data. The fear cage flawlessly explains why the human workers are hallucinating. But human biology does absolutely nothing to explain the machine behavior. A military-grade robotic drive unit does not have a temporal lobe. A robot cannot be tricked by an electromagnetic field into feeling paranoid. An industrial LiDAR laser does not hallucinate physical mass.
Exactly.
Furthermore, the fear cage effect causes internal visual distortions inside a single human brain. It does not project physical acoustic sound waves of a child laughing into the ambient air for a microphone to record.
And this raises an important question, which is the focal point of the final, heavily redacted section of the source documents.
Yeah, that last section is wild.
The scientific EMF theory is robust, but it only explains the human reaction, not the physical catalyst. If science can only explain half of the Amazon glitch, well, the analysts were forced to look at the historical and geological data.
Right, taking a totally different angle.
Exactly. If the phenomenon isn't just a biological hallucination caused by modern technology, what if it is something much older that the technology is interacting with?
So, the alternative theory shifts the focus from the building itself to the specific coordinates of the land beneath the concrete slab. We are talking about the exurban sprawl.
Right.
To build a facility the size of 14 football fields, corporations buy up massive, cheap tracts of undeveloped land on the far outskirts of major cities.
And the zoning and geological records in the stack show that many of these specific fulfillment centers were constructed on land that had been virtually untouched for centuries.
Wow.
We're talking ancient bedrock, dried riverbeds, and historically complex geography. The alternative hypothesis proposes that the land itself harbors an existing localized anomaly. For hundreds of years, it was dormant.
Until we showed up and dropped a hyper-advanced megastructure right on top of it.
Precisely. The theory suggests the warehouse is acting as an unintentional amplifier.
An amplifier.
Think about it. We have injected millions of volts of electricity into the bedrock. We have 10,000 heavy robots creating constant, localized kinetic vibration across the concrete slab 24 hours a day.
Right, it never stops.
Never. The sheer kinetic and electrical energy isn't creating the shadow figures. It is acting as a massive tuning fork, agitating an ancient unknown that was already occupying those geographic coordinates.
Man, it's like we built a giant particle accelerator over a dormant fault line. But instead of earthquakes, we're generating friction between two completely different spectrums of reality.
That's a great way to put it.
It's the bleeding edge of 21st century logistics running headfirst into something tethered to the ancient Earth. And our technology has finally become advanced enough, our LiDAR and acoustic sensors are sensitive enough to actually detect the collision.
It creates a fascinating synthesis.
It really does.
The extreme EMF of the warehouse doesn't just create a fear cage hallucination in the workers. It might actually thin the perceptual veil, allowing the human brain to catch brief glimpses of the physical entity that the robots are actively swerving to avoid.
So it all connects?
Yes. The electrical grid acts as the agitator, the LiDAR proves the physical mass, and the temporal lobe scrambling allows the workers to finally see it.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Let's step back and look at the whole picture we have constructed from these sources.
It's quite a picture.
Yeah. We started with what sounded like an internet creepypasta, right? Shadow figures in a dark warehouse. But by following the hard data, we uncovered an incredibly complex intersection of logistics, biology, and geography.
We have the localized sensor overrides of advanced robotic units dodging invisible mass.
Right. And we have ambient predictive maintenance microphones capturing impossible acoustics in highly restricted Fort Knox-style environments. And we have the very real biology of electromagnetic fields scrambling human perception, acting as a catalyst for ancient geographical anomalies.
It really serves as a vital exercise in how we process information today.
Definitely.
In an era where data is just overwhelming, critical thinking requires us to synthesize multiple conflicting streams of information. If you dismiss this entirely as an EMF hallucination, well, you ignore the hard telemetry data of the LiDAR sensors and the acoustic microphone logs.
You can't just ignore the machines.
Right. But if you dismiss it as just a mechanical routing glitch, you ignore the biological reality of the fear cage and the identical human testimonies. True analysis requires holding all those uncomfortable realities together at once.
And on a deeply practical level, I think this deep dive profoundly changes how we interact with the invisible infrastructure of our daily lives.
Oh, for sure.
The next time you click Buy Now and a cardboard package magically appears on your doorstep 12 hours later, take a second to look at the shipping label. Wonder about the 3.7 AM environment that box had to navigate.
Think about what it went through.
Yeah, think about the massive humming megastructure it passed through, and wonder if a little orange robot had to execute an emergency evasive maneuver around something completely unseen in Sector 4, just to bring you your coffee filters.
Which leaves us with a final, lingering thought to consider. We have established through this technical data that the massive overlapping electromagnetic fields we generate for our modern conveniences can literally hack our neurology, altering what our brains allow us to see.
Which is terrifying on its own.
It is. We also know our industrial spatial sensors can map physical mass that is entirely invisible to the human eye. So as you go about your day, in a highly electrified modern city, saturated in Wi-Fi, cellular networks, and massive electrical grids,
Yeah.
What else is currently walking right beside you, completely undetected by your biology, but fully visible to the machines in your pocket?